Hey there, it's Joey, and today we're breaking down the weirdest qualities of 50 different commander archetypes. There are a lot of common deck strategies out there, like Enchantress, Equipment decks, Blink, Reanimator, but no matter what it is that you're playing, there's something a little bit funny about your favorite deck style. Something that maybe other players don't know about that strategy, or that they don't know about you. That's right, I'm here to expose you and your deck's secrets. No time to waste, let's get into it. First up, Enchantress. Enchantress decks look all serene and stuff, but they are actually basically Storm decks. Cast one cheap spell and draw 3 cards, repeat. Some Enchantress win conditions even include this thing. Enchantress decks look calm, but they are one of the most explosive strategies out there. Infect decks. For being one of the most divisive mechanics of all time, the people who actually play full-on, truly dedicated poison decks are the nicest people. Cheers to all of you out there for putting up with the fact that Triumph of the Hordes and Tainted Strike have given your entire strategy a really bad rap. A lot of players think that poison is super broken in Commander, and like, some one-off cards can be really powerful when they come from out of nowhere, sure, but dedicated full infect decks are actually way tougher to pull off and succeed with, so kudos to all of you who commit fully for taking that heat and still keeping on. Blink decks. You're probably a combo deck, sorry, or at least you're like an inch away from being one. You have to fight so hard to not become a combo deck when you play Blink. And not only that, but you also have to fight really hard to find good endgame strats that don't take 9 years after you've gotten the board right where you want them to finally end the game. Mill decks. Your strategy accidentally helps a lot of other players out, and yet those players seem to hate you for it. It is wild to see how much everyone hates being milled, despite the fact that it often makes their own cards better. Like, how dare you mill me, and then they cast an Eternal Witness. People will act like milling caused them to lose cards that they might not have even drawn that game, and then that somehow tunnel visions them to the fact that they do actually have access to cards like Balaged Recovery in their deck to get those things back. Anyway, yeah, if you play mill, you are not just navigating cards, you are also navigating emotional minefields. And please, for your own sake, make sure that you are exiling those graveyards after you filled them up. Do so ASAP. Defender decks, aka toughness matters. Paradoxically, defender decks are some of the most aggressive decks in the entire format. First glance, it's like, oh, an 05 and 07, no big deal. Then you blink and you realize that their entire board has been transformed into a bunch of 2-mana 7/7s and you're being attacked for 18 damage on turn 4. Aggro and burn. Community perception on these is totally backwards to me. Like, burn and aggro are kind of viewed as turn off the brain strats, as so anyway I just started blasting type of strategies, but they're actually extremely mathematical. The damage that you do on turn 3 is going to be the setup for whether or not you will be able to win by exactsies on like turn 8. And with all of the damage modifiers and amplifiers and doublers that are floating around out there, you require some really important rules knowledge about how all of those things stack together. It's just a very weird reputation for an actually very disciplined archetype. Landfall decks. Fun one here. Landfall, here's the weird thing about you. You're the reason that people think that mass land destruction would be a good way to stop green, but what's actually ironically true here is that if mass land destruction were to be more socially acceptable, you, the landfall player, would be best poised to take advantage of that dynamic. Case in point, the cards that are most commonly paired up with Armageddon spells, they're green. What a shocker. Reanimator decks. We Reanimator players have the weirdest freaking mana curves. Like, most decks have a nice bell curve distribution, but Reanimator decks, meanwhile, look like this monstrosity. Also, and this is really tough to say, but Graveyard Exile effects are actually one of our best friends. We want those types of effects in our own deck, so that when we cast a Living Death, it's a one-sided effect. In other words, we Reanimator players are total hypocrites. Super Friends. Of everyone assembled at the table, you are the most likely person to win by opponents scooping. You're probably running the highest number of board wipes in your deck compared to others who are present because those are good defenses for your walkers. Ulting your walkers usually positions you to win but doesn't actually close things down. Plus, killing your pieces usually involves attacking your walkers instead of attacking you, so your games naturally go longer. And that cocktail effects all leads to opponents just being more likely to go, okay, let's call it there. Theft decks. You hate opponents dying. You have a favorite opponent, and you want them to stay around as long as possible, because if they die, all of their cards that you stole will leave the game with them. You're a walking 2-for-1, because when one player gets KO'd, you also get knocked down a whole bunch too. By the way, if you want to know where you can find out more about different deck archetypes out there, make sure you check out EDH Rec's theme page. It has helped me a ton in making this video. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, it's crazy that only like half of the people who regularly watch the channel channel are actually subscribed. Feel free to do combat with the YouTube engagement buttons. It's okay, you have first strike. So if you like and subscribe, you will definitely defeat them. They only have 1 toughness, so they will not get a chance to deal damage back to you. So silly. But anyway, the theme pages are a really cool space to explore what other users are brewing and how they're brewing it. So you can see ideas not just for a specific commander, but for a whole archetype that many different commanders have all converged upon. And it's cool to see that lots of deck building sites have also started to implement tagging systems to help you browse through individual deck lists more easily too. Anyway, that's a cool place for some extra info, but enough of that for now. Let's get back to talking about how your favorite deck archetype is weird. Equipment/aura/Voltron. Your favorite store in the whole world is probably a 7-Eleven, because 7 and 11 are your commander damage goalpost numbers. Also, you hate Shroud. I mean, you love Shroud, but you hate Shroud. And frankly, the same kind of goes for protection. Like, all of the swords of Pro X and Y can feel very non-bowy with some of your own equipment sometimes. Goad decks. This is the only strategy where I regularly see people use protection spells to save other people's boards instead of saving their own, where you're happy to see that someone else made their stuff indestructible in a board wipe. Like, oh, thank goodness, your creature survived. That means I can keep using them to hit other people. Our creatures, comrade. Life gain decks. Is it uncouth for me to say that life gain decks can sometimes be a little stingy? Your life is your main resource. Sometimes just a few points of life are the difference between whether or not you will win with a test of endurance or not. So like, I totally get it. It's just very funny that life gain players will fiercely defend and make bad blocks and lose valuable creatures to preserve a life total that is already like almost at 100 or even past that. Meanwhile, I'm over here at like 22 life being like, nah, my creature's way too valuable, so I won't block. I guess I'll take 14. Do you want to have lots of life or use lots of life? It's an interesting dynamic. There's probably something psychological to observe here about how the more you have, the more terrified you become of losing it. I don't know. Basically what I'm saying is that life gain players, you have a lot of existential exploration to do. Creature type goes here decks. You care less about your creature type than you think you do. Your sub-theme is your deck theme. I'll refer you to a previous video we've done on this subject. There's a lot of variety within the umbrella of each creature type, so look to the support cards to help figure out what you'll have the most fun with and why. Group slug decks. You are starved from making a political deal with somebody because you have no leverage to do so in the game at all. Your cards deal AoE damage. It's hard to make deals with you when it means that I'm still taking damage from you. Ironically, this makes you a lot more fragile than you first appear. And not only that, but more often than not, you end up being a smokescreen for other strategies. You end up taking all the heat, attracting all the attention, which gives them the room to build up an explosive play later on. And once someone else is an archenemy, you are kind of a liability to your temporary teammates because you still can't stop dealing damage to them. It's a fun strategy, and your cards don't have a whole ton of downsides, but you as the player totally do. Group hug strategies. You're here giving out gifts and cards and counters and extra benefits to other players, and also, you are the cruelest, most sadistic, evil player at the entire table. And you know it. +1 counter decks. You know that common adage about auras? How if you put them on a creature, but then that creature dies, you've 2-for-1'd yourself because an opponent only spent 1 card, but you lost multiple cards. So then you have to be really careful about putting all of your eggs into one basket. Well, +1 counters decks, guess what? You are secretly an aura deck, and you have been this whole time. Only aura decks can actually get all of their enchantments back if those things die. Whereas you, it's a lot harder for you to build things back up. Every deck gets set back by wraths, but none more than you do. Snow decks. Y'all are probably the strategy that plays the greatest number of basic lands in the deck, rivaling landfall decks even, because how else are you going to get that snow density? Secret upside, you're a little bit more immune to a blood moon than a lot of other people. Artifact decks. You are the archetype that is the most susceptible to playing lots of payoff cards without enough setup cards. In this case, you will have probably a lot of cards that care about artifacts, but which are not artifacts themselves, and you probably don't play enough artifacts to trigger all of those payoff cards. Finding the right density of things to make the deck actually work in the first place is tough as heck in a lot of lists, but especially for artifacts players. Also, you are probably mad that I waited this long to mention artifact decks in this video. Aristocrats decks. You are the most crowded deck archetype. Congratulations. The aristocrats folks are the most at risk of drawing the wrong half of our deck or winding up with a lot of redundant pieces in play. In a deck, you need mana and ramp and draw and removal and lands and all of that, but here you also need the sacrifice outlets, the sacrifice payoffs, and stuff to sacrifice. If you only draw your sack outlets and no payoffs or sackables, then you're not going to do very well. If you get a bunch of payoffs and a bunch of tokens, but no outlets in play, then you'll have no momentum. And if you do get all of those ingredients, but then you don't get any extra card draw or extra removal, someone else is going to completely run you over. Brewing aristocrats means that you are spinning a lot of plates during deck building, and you have to be very, very, very careful not to over or underbalance any part of those categories. Mutate decks. The weirdest thing about mutate decks is that they exist. Ninjutsu decks. I covered creature types earlier, but technically this is different because there are decks that are just built around the ninjutsu mechanic but don't feature a whole lot of ninjas in the deck. Anyway, you already know the weirdest thing about ninjutsu, and it is the 5-part explanation of the combat phase and how in the 5th step, end of combat step, after damage has already been dealt, those creatures are still considered attacking. So you can ninjutsu a creature after an unblocked creature hits somebody if you want to, which often comes in handy for those decks, even if the table wrapping their heads around it comes at the cost of many, many brain cells. Colorless decks. I'm just going to say it. People who play this strategy, theater kid energy. Yes, this is a self-report. I am speaking from experience here. Tokens decks. I think y'all don't attack enough. Very commonly, token decks in EDH wait until they have enough creatures that with just one big pump spell, they can swing for lethal on the entire board, and they don't have to do the math. Math is for blockers, etc. Rather than doing steady chip damage over the course of the game. I think you should consider trying to do a little bit more chip damage. I think it'd be good for you, and it would help pressure your opponent so that they sweat a little bit more. Like, don't tap out and leave yourself defenseless or whatever, but you have probably fallen into a gameplay pattern of holding back until you build up to a single inflection point to win the game, and that makes you more susceptible to getting blown out by other people's combat spells. So get out of your rut and try something a little bit different. I think it'd be good for you, token decks. Play from Exile decks. All of y'all must have like a PhD or something, because having to keep track of so many different types of casts from Exile effects is nutty. Some impulse draw only lets you play stuff on this turn, some on your next turn, some will let you play it until certain conditions are met, some let you play any type of card, while some only let you play spells and therefore you can't play lands. It's a big ol' mess, so y'all are wizards for being able to navigate it quickly. A buddy of mine plays an Exile Matters deck, and before the game even begins, he gets out an Infinite token and labels different sections on it for his various Exile zones, like Suspend and Adventure and Foretell and whatnot. Like, that is just, that's dedication right there. Also, big apologies that your impulse draw doesn't work with other things that you probably enjoy, like Suspend or Rebound. I'm sorry that the kids don't all get along, you know? Wheels decks. Addicted to gambling, the whole lot of you. People who play this strategy well take a leap of faith every game. When you're finally ready to pull the trigger and deploy both a payoff card and a wheel spell in the same turn, you are praying that you'll be able to draw into another of those wheel spells. Because if you don't, then your one big turn will sputter right out and you will be left with nothing. Like I said, it's a gamble, and it's so cool to have that experience each game. I love that you take the risk. Combo decks. Alright, so this one's more complicated. There are several strategies we've mentioned that have bad reputations, and frankly, this is one of the stinkiest. Now, I'm gonna bat for you really quick, combo folks, because I don't think in all cases that reputation is super fair, because like some commanders out there are just not going to win in other ways. What do you expect from Azami? A commander damage win? Probably not. And there's a lot of tact and skill in carefully timing when the coast is clear for a combo to go off uninterrupted. Your strategy unfolding in your hand rather than on the battlefield is interesting. After all, Magic has a poker component. But all that said, in many cases, the bad rap is well earned. Games that feel like they end out of nowhere to the rest of the table, those just feel bleh in terms of the overall game narrative. We like games that feel like Knives Out, not games that feel like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. So here's what your weird thing is, combo decks. More than any other strategy, you are best poised to add a lot of drama to the game, and to be the master of the game narrative. I probably have quoted that Hitchcock thing in previous videos. In a movie, watching a scene and then a bomb going off can cause a moment of surprise for the audience, but if first you show the audience the bomb under the table, that adds a ton of tension to the scene as it's unfolding. In other words, if you pregame well, you could create a similar tension and intrigue for the other players, which may help them access why it is that you find combo as fun as you do. If you're playing combo, you have the chance to play movie director here a little bit. If you want people to enjoy your movie, I think you're better served in not behaving like M. Night Shyamalan. Frankly, that's true of a lot of things. Keywords matter decks. It's so cool that you get to share keywords around and get buffs for your creatures and all that, but I just have one question for you folks playing keywords decks out there. How's that lack of benefit for haste feeling? Any number decks. Unless you're proxying, you cannot be built on a budget, and that honks. Like, despite being mostly commons, your deck usually costs a bazillion dollars, because each copy of your Heir Apparent or Rat Colony or whatever is like $5 a pop. Stacks, hate bears, control, and discard. Nothing. There's nothing weird about you at all. You're perfectly normal. Did I say that right? Will you please just let my family go? Treasure decks. Every single person you play against is going to have that one moment where they think that you are tapped out because all of your lands are sideways, but it turns out you do have mana up, don't you? You have accidentally helped teach a lot of people a very valuable lesson, a mistake that they never want to make again. Cascade decks. How badly do you miss playing counter spells and X spells? Frankly, everyone who knows a Cascade player knows that person still won't stop talking about how you used to be able to Cascade into double face cards. Legends matter. You are accidentally a very good stuff deck. Legendary cards are super powerful, but they're also usually designed to do like their own thing rather than cooperating with a bunch of other legends. Which means that aside from the occasional legends buffing card, you have to do a lot of wrangling to find any synergies between the various legends that you're playing. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a very different experience to the usual intra-card synergy that you see in a lot of other archetypes, which can work against you if you're not keeping a careful eye on it. Spellslinger and Storm. Storm decks will take up a lot of the chess clock, but you know what? At least they know where they're going, and they need to play big sister to the Spellslinger decks out there, because some Spellslinger piles get so caught up in the thrill of taking so many game actions that they forget to play a win condition. Lots of strategies can get so caught up in value that they forget about victory, but usually those other strategies still acquire a pretty decent board presence along that process and therefore can still, attack people. Whereas Spellslingers don't often do that. Win conditions are not accidental here. They have to be intentionally selected when brewing. And like one Murmuring Mystic and one Gutter Snipe are not a solid enough basis for ending the game in good fashion, Charles. Anyway, yeah, Spellslinger can be kind of a fidget spinner strategy. It's extremely stimulating, but if you are playing it, please just don't forget to point that energy somewhere. Monarch and Pillow Fort. Irony of ironies, you have a whole bunch of cards that will stop other people from attacking you, but also you kind of want to be attacked because you've got all those Aikido cards too. You are strongest when there is momentum coming at you that you can redirect and harness for your own needs. One of the best ways to neutralize your cards is, frankly, to not attack you at all. And that's weird, bruh. Also, for the Monarch variant specifically, it took you a good long time to build up that proper habit of drawing an extra card at the end of the turn so that you don't miss your Monarch trigger. And it took you even longer to remember to not draw that card on your end step when someone else has the Monarch. Morph and face down decks. All right, listen, I'm here with you, okay? How many times have you said, "You've activated my trap card," in real life when you're playing these decks? Do you have card sleeves that make your cards look like Yu-Gi-Oh cards? It's fine. It's okay to admit it. This is a safe space. Dungeon and initiative decks. One-off initiative cards? Screw that. It's like one-off day-night cards. I am so not interested. But committed to the bit initiative? Amazing. Genuinely very fun and compelling gameplay. This is a strat that you cannot half-ass, and I love that. Also, though, I just have to comment as a spectator here that you are the strategy that gives me the most schadenfreude. That's so cruel of me to say, but I'm not sorry. Watching you do the dance of when you have to venture into the dungeon versus when you can take the initiative to make sure that you don't accidentally go into the wrong dungeon map, I love watching you squirm. I just do. -1 counter decks. No, you can't keep borrowing my dice for your -1 counters. Please bring the dice that you need for your strategy that puts dice on everything. I don't like the feeling of handing you the knife that you'll stab me with. Also, I live in fear for the day WotC finally gives you all a Jund commander that specifically cares about -1 counters that you can put all of these cards into, because I know you've been waiting for so long that when it finally does happen, the force of your tears will cause an explosion. Dice rolling and coin flipping. Coin flip decks usually just roll dice instead, because it's easier. Like, they rarely actually flip a coin. And as for dedicated dice rolling decks, if you're missing at least 2 dice from your favorite dice set, that is how I know that you're a seasoned player. Time counters and upkeeps. You will be told that you are playing Sphinx and Shadow of the Second Sun wrong every time, even though you are not playing them wrong at all. If you are playing a time deck, you are probably playing those cards because they give you more upkeeps to help out with your time counters and suspend and whatnot, and that is great. But take it from me, I have lived this. You will experience people who are 100% wrong about how those cards work, telling you that you are wrong about how they work, and saying so with their whole chest. As a quick crash course, these are triggered abilities, and if they resolve, they will give you an extra phase after your post-combat main. But a lot of people seem to read them as static abilities that will add the beginning phase before your second main. They often miss the "after this phase" part at the end of the sentence. If you're wondering, these cards are worded this way so that they will work if you have duplicates or copies of them. These are triggers that can even be stifled. They're designed to help you keep your mana up, not designed to help you play even more stuff on your turn at sorcery speed. Frankly, these are Dunning-Kruger cards. If people think that they're actually very simple effects, that is often a sign that those folks don't have a lot of experience playing with these cards. Whereas, if people think that the cards are in fact confusingly worded, that is a sign that they do have experience playing with those cards, and experience in telling people how those cards actually work. And to all you time counter deck players out there, I know you will love these cards, and I am so sorry for the fact that they cause debates every single time that you play that deck. Chaos decks. I did the math, and depending on your provider, going to therapy is cheaper than building these decks. I'm going to stay stoic here. I know that there's a little bit of trolling involved here and that you're trying to get a rise, you're trying to get a reaction, and I'm going to withhold that from you. Magic the Edgening. Vehicles decks. These decks produce the funniest flavor fails in the entire game. Is the idea of a single creature holding like 9 different equipment kind of funny imagery? Sure. But that is nothing compared to the idea of like a rat token getting behind the wheel of a car and then that car becomes the pilot of a spaceship. These decks are brain breaking. Fight decks. Having to explain very patiently for the 3rd time that no, things like Trample and First Strike and Double Strike don't interact with fight spells, but yes, Death Touch and Lifelink do interact with it, and no, this does not count as combat or as commander damage, and no, fighting does not mean that the creatures get tapped, and energy decks. I promise I mean this in the politest way possible. Energy has gotten 3 precons, and I don't think any one of those precons has done justice to this strategy. It's a hard mechanic to navigate without it becoming super broken like it did back in the original Kaladesh block, so I get why the restraints are there design-wise, and I think the collective efforts of all 3 of those energy precons makes for something compelling when you start mixing the cards together, for sure. But just personally, every single one of the energy precons has been a complete whiff for me, and I can't say that for literally any other strategy in the entire game. Clue decks. Clues not having to tap to activate, so then you can use them for things like Jaheira or for improvise, is so bizarre and so cool. So please, Clue deck players, appreciate how cool it is that your deck can do that, because the rest of us are jealous. Also, if you're not quoting either Madeline Kahn or Tim Curry when you play this deck, you are doing it wrong. Extra combat and extra turns. People online seem to think that strategies utilizing either of these things are basically the same thing. I cannot settle that debate for you. I don't have a horse in this race, whether that comparison is either apt or it's outlandish. So I'm going to need y'all to help out and clarify what's going on there. Like, yes, I've played against Narset decks who basically uses those things interchangeably, so I know where the comparison came from, but doesn't it feel like it's just grown into a whole different deal? I don't know. It's just someone needs to solve that, and it cannot be me. Clone decks. Lots of strategies will need extra accoutrement to make those archetypes possible, like dice for a counters deck or keyword markers, that sort of thing. But if you're playing clones, you are in the unique position of almost certainly needing something like infinite tokens to help keep track of everything that is on your field, and to communicate all of that information to your opponents very clearly too. Because without extra tools to provide clarity, your board is the most inscrutable thing in the entire world. P.S. It's funny as heck that clone players don't even play that namesake card at all, because clone has been so thoroughly power crept out of the format. Okay, bye. Top deck manipulation. Okay, I'm praying that this is not just a me thing, but anyone out there, do you ever find when you're playing a top deck manipulation deck that the surveil lands are a little disquieting to your soul? Like most of the time when you scry or you shift around the top cards of your deck or whatever, no one knows what it is that you have or what it is that you've tucked away. No one's gonna know. But with the surveil land specifically, they're gonna know. If you toss it away, suddenly your secrets are seen. They'll know that you don't need that card, and they'll start to figure out why. And sometimes you just wish that it was a scry instead of a surveil, so that then they don't know what it is that you're planning or what it is that you're digging for. In other words, top deck manipulation decks are all about hiding and secrets and all of that hidden information stuff, and that makes us much more self-conscious about enduring the mortifying ordeal of being known. But hey, maybe that's just a me thing. Food decks. You are so good at using those foods in ways that don't involve having to actually sacrifice them to gain life, that I know when you finally do start cracking them to gain life, that I am either in the best possible position because now you're clearly on the back foot and sacrificing those foods is all you have left to do, or that you finally do something and I'm about to die. Cycling decks. For a lot of decks, an optimal mana base means that very few of the lands will enter tapped. That's not the case for you. So many of your lands enter tapped, dear lord. And lastly, flying decks. I'm happy to report that there's nothing weird about flying decks. Y'all are the best. And no, I'm not biased just because this is the strategy of deck that my mom plays. Like, what? Why would you even like think that? It's crazy. And there it is, 50 of Commander's most common archetypes and the thing that makes them, or you the person playing them, just a little funky. Hope you enjoyed watching, hope you attack those YouTube buttons, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. And until next time, remember, EDH wreck your deck before you wreck your deck.